You're tuned into Out of the Voice Box, where candid conversations bring great minds together from across the nation.
Join us for access to cutting-edge voice-related information you won't find in a textbook. Yet.
We are your hosts, Sarah Charney
and Nathaniel Sundholm.
The opinions and viewpoints on this program are those of the featured individuals, not their respective institutions. This program is not a substitution for medical care.
Hey listeners, thanks for joining us. Amy Chapman is a voice therapist and voice coach based in Los Angeles. She is the founder and owner of VoiceLab LA. When she's not busy singing herself, she is making stars shine. Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm so flattered, and thank you for having me. What a fun night we're having.
So it's actually really funny now that I'm seeing your face. I have a lot of friends that live out in LA, and I got used to seeing your hands cradling their jawline, their neck, and I'm so excited that we can catch up with you and learn a little bit more about what you do in your private practice studio. So if you got stuck on an elevator with a singer or performer, how would you describe what you do to them?
Okay, so if we're just going to like the fifth floor, I would say I am a voice therapist and a voice coach. So I help singers rehab, and then usually they just stick with me as voice coaching. If we're going to the 15th floor, and it's one of those old-fashioned elevators that, takes so long, I would really go into more detail about how I really like to work and how I'm a little bit of a renegade when it comes to that type of stuff. And I also, as you kind of mentioned, do what's called the voice massage, which is a super highly specialized massage for singers. And that's kind of what threw me on the map to begin with. And I'd usually probably give them like a mini massage to be honest, because I tend to do that. I'm like, watch, let me try it on you. And then they're sold. So
you have a private practice. How did you decide to go private practice, and how do you keep making it work?
I didn't decide to go private. Somebody decided for me when I was fired. So I actually worked with a laryngologist in town, and for various reasons, they decided not to keep me. And it was a Friday, and I said, I have to start my own thing, because I realized very quickly I'm very independent. And I like my autonomy, and I don't like working for other people. Not that I'm difficult to work with, I'm not, but I have strong opinions. And when somebody tells me how to do my job, I can't. I just, when I have to deal with insurance, when I have to deal with, we don't want to do that here. And especially what I do is half medical, half artistic. So there's a lot of that woo-woo, a lot of that kind of like holistic approach that isn't widely accepted, and I had no choice. So I said, well, I guess on Monday I'm starting my business, and that's what I did, and I've been booked ever since. And that was 4 years ago.
Wow, so their loss.
Big time.
And you know what they say, when you can't color in the lines, you just screw the lines, you make your own lines and color where you want.
And that's what I did. And I'm so grateful that I did that. I mean, it was very scary, obviously, and it's still scary, but I'm not scared anymore, because you fail and like, whatever, I can go work at a sniff if I ever needed to,
Always some backup plans.
But I could.
So I want to get right to this voice massage, because that is very exciting. How did you develop this approach to what we're going to call laryngeal or voice box repositioning, and why does it work? Can you tell our listeners?
Totally. So I started doing typical voice therapy, resonance, breathing, and I found so many people kept saying, I feel like a soreness, a tightness, it aches right here. Everybody kept pointing there, and I am such a tactile person. Actually, a little side note, when I was young, my mom was an electrolyst in a beauty spa. And after school, I would go there, and I was probably like 8, 9, or 10. And I would just hang out while she was working. And there was a masseuse there who was like, hey, let me teach you how to do a couple little things. So all of a sudden, I realized I have not just very strong hands, but I have a wild ability to feel where people's pain is, which I always say is like a superhero talent. Like, I'm really excited about this talent, but I'll put my hands on it and be like, right there, it hurts. And they're like, how the heck did you know that right there it hurts? And so I've always loved that kind of touch. You know, I can find that knot in your back. I just know where it is. And so when people would start saying, you know, it just hurts right there, I feel this, I feel that, I'm like, why aren't we touching your neck? Masseuses will not go near your neck. So I had one supervisor in my CF who was doing like kind of a massagey thing right here. We did a little bit of that. It wasn't very effective. And then I found an osteopath in England who is well known for his laryngeal manipulation, which is the technical term. And I took his course, and then I added it to different things that I like to do. So he has his method. There's another guy who I took his course. He has his method. I didn't really like his method, to be honest. And then after maybe like 1,000 people that I've done manipulations on, I started really kind of making my own method and my own dance, and I do what I do. And I've seen probably about 90% effectiveness and decreasing the amount of therapy that people really need, which is wild. Because I would have, you know, when you're in a clinical setting, it's once a week, 10 weeks, type of thing. This would be after the first time, it was like a miracle. And I'm such a non-believer in everything that to see this and to see people just cry and be like, oh my God, my voice is back. Like, it was so magic. And that's honestly like why I love voice therapy and hate all other speech therapy, because it takes so much time and I'm such an impatient person. This was the miracle for me. And I became such a believer, like a multi-level marketing person right here. I'm like, this was it. Everybody needs to take my course. No, I don't have a course yet, but one day I'll do it. So that's really what it is. It's such a miracle. I love seeing people's faces at the end and they're like, oh my God, my voice. Like, either like they lost their voice and now it's back, or they can sing notes they weren't able to sing before. Or sometimes I'll do it right before someone goes on stage and they're about to sing a huge thing, and I just loosen up their larynx and they're able to belt 5 notes higher. It's crazy.
In terms of the muscles, there's a lot of muscles in our larynx. Do we know which muscles you are particularly targeting?
Some. So sternocleidomastoid is the big guy. And in some of the manipulations that I've learned before, they didn't touch that at all.
We're going to pause for a second. Okay, listeners, sternocleidomastoid means that this muscle connects from your sternum and your clavicle all the way up to your mastoid process, which is a bony process right behind your ear. When you turn your head either to the right or the left, you'll see a little prominence on the side of your neck. That is the SCM. Natalie Portman has a fantastic sternocleidomastoid, so if you need a Google Images, look her up. All right, sorry for the interruption, Amy. Back to you.
I loved it. And right after this, I'm going to Google Natalie Portman's SCM. Usually I'll say like, it's that big hot dog thing in your neck. That's what I tell people, because it just sort of looks like a nice hot dog right there. But yeah, so that's a big part of it. Those tend to get very tight, very tender. If someone has any sort of muscle tension dysphonia, there's a little name drop for you, MTD, which I believe pretty much everybody has to a certain extent, because who doesn't have tension in their life, and who doesn't go straight to their throat if they're a voice person? So anybody with muscle tension dysphonia, if they rub that right there, you're going to feel that tenderness. And all of a sudden everybody goes, oh, right there. So that's a big part of what I do, is I loosen that part up. Between you, me, and, you know, I guess the listeners right here, I've given a couple of blackout massages in my day. Thank God it was while I was still working at the ENT clinic. And I was like, oh, uh-oh, because you have a nice little carotid artery right there. So this is something that you have to be very careful about. So that I'm throwing that out there. So it's not just like, oh, great, I'm just going to go squeeze my neck for 5 minutes. The SEM is the biggest. And then larynx, the laryngeal strap muscles right around, and those aren't exactly named, but you can feel them. And it's, what was very cool is I got the opportunity to do sit inside of a neck dissection, which I don't know if I should even say out loud, but while I was still learning, and it was a full neck dissection, so the neck skin was peeled all the way open, and I got to see every single muscle that I manipulate. So I actually gave a manipulation to this person with their neck splayed open. I asked, how does your neck feel? And he was like, not good. I'm like, well, that's not me. It was more because you just had a really ridiculous surgery on your neck and you happen to get a massage at the same time. But I'm sure you're not feeling those effects right now. But it was great to see what I was actually doing underneath the skin. So yes, I do the SEM, the surrounding strap muscles, all of your glossal muscles, so everything in your tongue, which my last post, I just said you have 8 muscles in your tongue, which not everybody knows. And even when I was in grad school, I was like, were there 8? And then I remembered, 4 and 4, but that took a minute to remember. I also get into the jaw as well. So jaw, tongue, neck, everything around there.
Question about the jaw. Do you go intraoral for the pterygoids, or do you stay all externally?
Depends on the person. If somebody's really having some serious jaw issues, TMJ, clicking, a little asymmetry, I will go in. These days, I'm trying not to go into people's mouths, obviously, but I do every now and then, and I'll do a couple of different versions, and I like to teach people how to do that to themselves, because I'm a firm believer that you need to be your own best teacher, and you need to know your own body, and we have a right to know our own body. So I teach people how to do it to themselves and how they can then loosen their own jaw, and it makes a world of difference.
So when it comes to these massages, who would you say is a good candidate, and maybe who would not be the best candidate for this?
I would say a good candidate would be anybody who has any sort of tightness in their voice or uses their voice professionally. And that could be singer, speaker, voiceover actor, teacher, attorney, things like that. Who's not a good candidate is probably someone with some kind of fibromyalgia. I've had a couple of people with fibromyalgia, and when I do something to manipulate their muscles, they tend to feel in their nerves a little bit more sensitive than I would like. So when somebody tells me that, I lay my hands off, or I'm extremely light, really light touching on them. Also, somebody who's had any sort of cervical spine fusion, I wait till they have a clearance from their physician. That's one big thing. Or even somebody who has had jaw surgery recently, that I will wait. And we talked a little bit about, I know I'm trying to go through, but even people who've had radiation, that I actually will do, and I will do more so, because you get that stiffening of the muscles and you get that muscle tissue that gets really fibrous from the radiation. So I've done radiation therapy as well, or I call it radiation. I don't do any radiation. I just touch where they were radiated, to be honest. Wait, there's another one. Thyroid surgery. So people who've had a partial or full thyroidectomy, I will wait till the incision site is cleared by their physician, and then I will go through and actually do the manipulation before they're fully healed, so there isn't any tethering with scar tissue. So sometimes that tethers to the larynx itself, and it causes more voice problems just because their larynx is not able to move up and down, really restricting their pitch. Also, my husband, he doesn't like it. The first time I learned it, I came home and I was like, honey, let me practice this thing on you. I gave him the full manipulation, and he turns over and he goes, I hope you never do that to anybody ever again.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was like, hon, this is what's going to make me famous. And he was like, that was horrible.
How interesting.
Which is great, but he's not a singer. So, but when singers have it or anybody who needs it, they are like, that is exactly what I needed. And I've never been touched that way. And I didn't even know this was a possibility. And it's life-changing, which is always very cool to hear.
When you are working with a singer, how do you help them equip themselves with the tools they need, the feedback they need to do this on themselves well? So, it's one thing to tell someone how to do a stretch. What are some of the safety measures you've put in place, or the go-to, this is how to do it things that you routinely give singers?
I stay more superficial when it comes to singers, or when it comes to people doing self-manipulations. I stay more superficial, meaning I'm really not giving them the manipulation part. I'm more on the massage part. So I will tell them about the SEM, about the jaw, about the tongue. I will say when you're doing those massages, you have to constantly be moving hands and one hand at a time. So you're not doing both sides at the same time. So you can have blood flow going on both sides, but constantly it needs to be moving. You need to be constantly moving your hands so you're not just clamped down. Really, the main thing is that carotid. And beyond that, I won't have them do manipulations to themselves unless they are so confident. They've come to me a lot. They know exactly what I do, and I can teach them a little bit more that way. But I just don't want them to think, oh, I could just like crank my larynx all the way out to Denver and then come on back. Like I just want them to, they can do this type of stuff, just muscle massage. So that's stay superficial.
Okay, Amy, so talk us through one of your go-to stretches or massages. I know this is a podcast, so do your best to just be as descriptive as possible so that, anybody can kind of try to follow along as best they can.
Sure. So my favorite stretch really is a tongue stretch. So I love stretching the tongue more so than massaging it because you're doing different parts of the tongue. And the one I love the best, it's funny. You put your hand right on your chest and you hold your skin taut right on your chest. And then you lift your chin to the ceiling. And then you want to lick up like you're licking an ice cream right on the ceiling. So, and you want to lick up about 5 times. Really reach it. Now come back down. All right, what do you guys feel?
I'll walk through exactly what I'm feeling. So I feel the pressure of my hands on my chest. And when I bring my chin rotating up towards the ceiling, I do feel a pulling from my chin down to where my hands are on my chest. When I extend my tongue out, I simultaneously feel a little tingle right above my Adam's apple or the thyroid prominence. And then kind of I have a long lingual frenulum, so I just can't stick my tongue out that far. But it does feel really nice after, and I didn't know I needed it.
Yeah. So if you have a tongue tie, lingual frenulum, you call it long, short. Put your tongue behind your bottom teeth, and instead of stretching the tip of your tongue, you're going to stretch the middle of your tongue. So it's going to push out that way, and you're going to feel a deeper stretch. You got that?
I need to do that more often, I think.
Yeah.
So especially if you are tongue-tied, you're going to have a tighter tongue than anybody else. I see that a lot, people who are tongue-tied.
I have a follow-up question. When you do this stretch, do you aim to do a little bit of an anterior, I guess in this case it'd be a superior jaw thrust with your tongue?
I do. So I do it in 3 stages when I do. I just kind of rushed into it this time. But first I'll say, just for people to put their hand on their chest and bring their chin up and kind of feel what it feels like when your chin is stretched with your hand holding the skin taut, and then bring your chin back down. Now I'll say do an underbite. So you have your jaw jutted forward, and do the same thing. That's kind of step 2 in the stretch. And chin back down. And then step 3 is actually the licking. So lick and bring your jaw forward while you're licking, and you feel that stretch a little bit deeper. You can also go diagonally with this, which helps a lot. So hand again under instead of right in the center. You're going to go right under the collarbone on one side, and you're going to stretch your chin diagonally like this, and then lick. And you're going to get the side of your tongue. So you can also move your chin forward, ear down to your shoulder, and then chin out. And so you're going to find a lot of different sides, because remember, how many muscles are on the tongue? 8. So there's so many different sides to stretch. So you can stretch the front, the belly, interior, medial, all different angles. So one stretch is not going to do for everything. So feel like you can move it around. And that's really my favorite stretch.
Amy, it has been such a pleasure having the opportunity to catch up with you and learn just a little bit more about how we can be best when it comes to providing good laryngeal manipulation and massaging. Listeners, if you were just in your car at a red light, licking the roof of your car, good on you. We so much appreciate your time and expertise. Thank you for the way that you're treating all of our singers out in the West Coast, Best Coast. You really are making stars shine, and we all have just a little bit to owe you for all the good music that's coming out these days.
I have a smile ear to ear and subsequent jaw tension right now because I'm so happy to be here. So I'm going to go manipulate my own jaw, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much again, Amy, for joining us today. I think we're going to have to go do some jaw manipulation as well. And to our listeners, we'll catch you again next time.